All right, let's get React onto this page, shall we? So the first thing that we need to do is get React on the page using Unpackage. Now, Unpackage is this awesome service that you can go take a look at. In fact, let's go ahead and take a look at that right now. So if you go to unpackage.com, it's a fast, globally connected, yada, yada, yada. But basically all of this does is it allows you to access anything that's on NPM just from the browser using URL and a script tag, which is awesome, perfect for our use cases. And so because React exposes a UMD, which is short for Universal Module Definition, it allows us to create a global variable in the browser that we can reference inside of our code. And if you actually just go and pull that up, you'll see here's React right there, all of that React code being served up for us from Unpackage. Big thank you to Unpackage for creating this. This is awesome. So let's go ahead and get React on the page by removing these two lines. And then with that saved, we can take a look at our console. We'll see React is now on the page. We have access to all of the cool things that React can do for us. And then we also have React DOM. And it looks like there are some secret internals. Do not use or you will be fired. Be careful, don't use that. but with these two things on the page, we can now create React elements and render those elements to the page. So the difference between React and React DOM is React will actually allow you to create elements. This is what we're going to be using most of the time, and we actually don't end up using it directly most of the time. We use JSX, which we'll learn about soon, but you create React elements very similar to how you create DOM elements, except React elements are very simple objects that kind of describe the UI that you want to create. And then you take that UI and you render it to the page using React DOM. And the reason that these two things are separate is because React supports other platforms as well. You have React Native and React VR. And so you can use the core React to create React elements for any of these platforms. And then you use the platform-specific package to get those React elements into the environment where you're shipping them to, whether that's native or DOM. So that's why we're including React DOM in here, and we're going to use React DOM to get stuff onto the page. So let's go ahead and do that. So we're still going to reference our root element that we have right here in the body. And that's where we're going to be rendering our app is to this root. But instead of creating our DOM element, we're actually going to create a React element. So I'm going to swap those, and we're going to create an element with React create element. And instead of creating an element and then manipulating it like we did here, I'm going to go ahead and say I want a div, just like we did before, and then we'll pass an object of all of the properties that I want set for this element. So I'm going to have a class name, container, and then instead of text content, I'm actually going to use children. So we'll say children, hello world. We'll save that. And you'll notice we're getting object. The reason that we're getting that is because I'm still appending this element to the root element using the raw DOM APIs to do that. And what this element is actually an object. And so what's happening here is we're getting a toString of that object. And so the toString of an object is what we see right there, which is not very helpful. But let's go ahead and console log the element and take a look at what this looks like. Let's go to our console here. And we're going to see this pretty simple object. It has this $$ type of thing, which you don't really need to worry about. It's just a way for React to recognize that this is indeed a legitimate React element. We also have a key and some props and a ref and a type, and then some things that I don't even know what these things do. But really what we're focused on here is the type, which we specified right here, and the props, which we specified as the second argument here. And so we get a class name and we get our children. So let's go ahead and take this element and say, hey, React, I've got this cool object here. I want you to take this element and put it onto the page. And so what React is going to do is it'll create a DOM node that this represents. It will set all the properties for us, and then it will append that to the page, similar to what we were doing before. So instead of this, now we're going to say React DOM.render. And the React DOM render API takes our element as the first argument, and then it takes our root element, or the root DOM node, as the second argument. So I'm going to move this up. We'll have these two totally separated. And there we go. We've got hello world, and we still have our React element here, and everything's working great. So whereas before we were creating the DOM node ourselves, now React is taking this element or this UI descriptor object. It's just kind of a description of the type of UI that we want to have created. And when we call render, it creates that element for us and then appends that element to the page, similar to what we were doing before. Now, right from the get-go, I don't really see a whole lot of benefit of using React over what we were doing, but as we work through some of this stuff, you'll see that React brings a lot more to the table than just this simple create element and render API. And I'm really looking forward to showing that to you. So let's go ahead and clean this up. We'll get rid of that element. We'll get rid of all of these comments. And let me give you just a quick review of some of the things that we did here. So we're still getting the root element that the browser is creating for this HTML. And then we're creating a React element using React create element. We're getting React on the page thanks to the universal module definition of the React package using unpackage, which is so awesome. And then we also bring in React DOM, which creates the global variable React DOM. And we call render on that to render our element to the root element. Just as a friendly reminder, normally in production React applications, you're not going to be putting everything into an HTML file like this, and you're not going to be adding script tags and whatever. You're going to be using some sort of tool to create these applications, and you'll use NPM and ES modules and everything, and it'll work out super, super nice. But we're going to stick with this HTML file for a little while, just so you can kind of get the hang of the differences between the different abstractions that you're using before we jump into full-on suite of tools and stuff. It'll just help you draw lines around what the different roles and responsibilities of the different tools are. And specifically, the role of React is to create React elements, and the role of React DOM is to take those elements and put them on the page.